Don't go there. My husband begged me he was right about what happened next. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I still remember that night like it just happened. You know when people say, certain moments burn themselves into your memory, this one, scorched mine. It started out so normal, too normal, actually. I was running late, nothing unusual there. Coffee in one hand, my phone in the other, juggling my bag, keys, and a wave of stress that had pretty much become part of my personality. I'd been working double shifts for weeks, barely sleeping, and honestly, I just wanted to make it home, take a hot shower, and not think about anything for a while. That night, my brother, Ethan, called me while I was still at work. I saw his name flash across the screen, and I smiled. He always called around the same time, just to check in. He'd ask if I'd eaten, tell me some dumb story about his day, and we'd end up laughing until one of us had to go. It was like our little ritual, you know? But that night, I didn't answer. I told myself I'd call him back later. I was exhausted, and I just needed a minute to breathe. It sounds so small, so harmless, right? Just one missed call. One. When I got into my car, the streets were empty. The kind of quiet that makes you notice things you usually wouldn't. The hum of the engine, the rhythm of your own breathing, the way the wind moves around the car. I remember thinking how strange the sky looked that night. No stars, just this thick gray mist that made everything feel smaller. Close to halfway home, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. I almost didn't look at it. I was driving, tired, thinking he was probably just teasing me for missing his call. But when I finally stopped at a red light and glanced down, my stomach dropped. It said, "Don't come here." That was it. 3 words, no context, no emojis, no punctuation, nothing. Just that dot. I stared at it for a second, waiting for the follow-up message that never came. I called him right away, straight to voicemail. I called again, and again, nothing. At first I told myself he was joking, maybe playing some kind of prank. But the longer I sat there, the more that feeling grew, like a cold hand wrapping around the back of my neck. Something wasn't right. I turned the car around. I don't even remember making the decision. It was just instinct. I drove faster than I ever have in my life, heart pounding, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Every mile closer to his house, my mind was running wild. What if he was hurt? What if someone was in the house? What if, when I turned onto his street, I saw the lights first, red and blue flashing through the fog. For a second, I couldn't move. My mind just refused to process it. But then I saw the yellow tape, the officers, the crowd of neighbors gathered near the fence. And that's when everything inside me broke. I slammed on the brakes, jumped out, and ran. Someone yelled at me to stop, but I didn't listen. I just kept shouting his name, over and over, like maybe he'd hear me and come running out, laughing, telling me it was all some big misunderstanding. But he didn't. They wouldn't let me pass the tape. One of the officers, this tall man with tired eyes, walked over and said, "Ma'am, please, we're still investigating." His tone was soft, almost pitying. I remember asking him where my brother was, what happened, if he was okay. He didn't answer any of it. Then, he said something that still echoes in my head. "We found signs of a struggle." I don't even know what I said back. I think I screamed. Maybe I cried. I just remember this ringing in my ears, like the world had gone silent except for that one sound. When they finally let me go inside the next morning, the house felt wrong. Everything was out of place. One chair overturned. His phone shattered on the floor. The kitchen light flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or die out. The weirdest part, his car was still running outside, engine humming, driver's door open. It was like he'd just disappeared. And then, I saw it. His phone screen, still faintly glowing, the same message staring back at me. "Don't come here." That's when it hit me. He'd send it to protect me. But from what? The police said maybe it was a robbery gone wrong. But nothing was missing. His wallet, his watch, even his keys were all there. They said maybe he'd gotten into a fight with someone he knew. But Ethan didn't fight. He was quiet, gentle, always trying to calm people down, not start trouble. None of it made sense. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my head, the missed call, the text, the silence when I tried calling back. Somewhere between the sleepless hours, I realized something. The timestamp on his message. It didn't line up. It had been sent after the police said everything happened. How was that possible? I felt sick, like the ground had shifted under me. I called his number again. This time, it rang once, then twice, and then someone picked up. I froze. For a second I thought maybe it was him. Maybe he was okay. Maybe this nightmare was finally over. But then a voice whispered, low, distorted, almost familiar, "You shouldn't have come." And the line went dead. I sat there in the dark, the phone still pressed to my ear, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, but deep down, I knew I hadn't. Whatever happened to my brother that night, it wasn't random. Someone knew him, someone wanted to make sure I stayed away. But I couldn't. I couldn't just walk away, because if I did, then his story would end there. Just another case, another statistic, another name people forget after a week, and I couldn't let that happen. Not to Ethan. After that call ended, I just sat there staring at the dark screen. My own reflection looked back at me, wide eyes, shaking hands like I'd just seen something I wasn't supposed to. I wanted to believe it was some kind of sick joke, that stress and grief were twisting my thoughts, but deep down, I knew someone had really answered. The next morning I drove to the station. The detective from the night before was there, same tired eyes, same careful voice. He told me the investigation was ongoing. They were following leads. It sounded rehearsed, like lines from a script no one believed anymore. When I asked about the call, he barely looked up. Could have been a crossed line, he said. Happens sometimes. A crossed line. As if voices just crawl out of dead phones for fun. When I left, the sun was too bright, the world too normal. People were buying coffee, walking dogs, laughing, and I was standing there thinking, my brother is gone, and everyone else just keeps moving. I went back to his house. The police tape still fluttered across the porch. I ducked under it. I needed to see it again. The scene, the silence, anything that might make sense of it. Inside, the air smelled like dust and metal. The overturned chair was where it had been, but the lamp that had been buzzing before, it was off now, completely unplugged. I bent down to pick up his phone. The screen was cracked, but when I pressed the button, it lit up. Battery 1%. A single notification blinked. Voicemail to one new message. My hands trembled. I hit play. Static, then a breath. Then, Ethan's voice, faint, scared. "Alec, they're here." The message ended with a sound, not words, not footsteps, just something heavy scraping against the floor. Then, silence. I dropped the phone. For a moment I couldn't move. My body just blocked, like every cell refused to believe what my ears had heard. Then, something inside me snapped. I grabbed my car keys, started driving again, without even knowing where I was going. Halfway down the road, I saw a figure standing near the old gas station, a man in a dark jacket, face hidden by the brim of his cap. He wasn't doing anything, just watching. When I slowed down, he turned away, walked toward the woods behind the station, and disappeared into the trees. I pulled over, heart racing, trying to tell myself it was nothing, but the feeling wouldn't leave, that cold weight of being seen. I texted the detective about the voicemail. No reply. That night I went through Ethan's laptop. He'd left it on the kitchen table, open to a folder named for Alec. My throat closed up when I saw it. Inside were screenshots of messages, emails, bank transactions, things I didn't understand at first, names of people I didn't recognize, payments, and then one photo. A black SUV parked outside his window, the same one that had been there the week before. He'd written a single note under the photo. "If anything happens, start here." That's when I realized my brother had known something dangerous. I printed everything, packed it into a folder, and decided I'd take it to a journalist I knew from college, someone who actually listened. But as I reached for my coat, the house phone rang. We hadn't used it in years. I picked it up slowly. Nothing. Then faintly. "Stop digging." Click. The sound echoed in my chest. For a second, all I could hear was my heartbeat. Then, I hung up, unplugged the phone, locked every door and window in the house. I sat there all night with the lights on, waiting for something, a knock, a shadow, anything. But nothing came. When morning finally broke, I felt empty. The police weren't helping. Someone was watching me. My brother's warning, "Don't come here," made new sense now. He hadn't just been afraid for himself, he'd been afraid for me. I packed a bag, left town for a few days. Every motel hallway felt too quiet. Every creak in the floor made me flinch. I kept replaying his last words in my head. They're here. Who were they? Why was he scared? And how much of what I'd found was I even supposed to know? By the third night, exhaustion won. I fell asleep with the TV on, just to drown out the silence. Somewhere around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. At first, just breathing again. Then a whisper. Alec, go home. It was his voice. And that's where everything inside me broke open all over again, because I didn't know if I'd just heard my brother, or someone pretending to be him. When I woke up that morning, sunlight cut through the motel curtains in thin shaking lines. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The room smelled like stale coffee and fear. Then I saw the folder on the nightstand, the one Ethan had labeled for Alicond. Everything came back in a rush. The voicemail, the call, the whisper that sounded like my brother. I told myself I had two choices. Run farther away, or go back home, and face whatever this was. And no matter how much my body begged to stay hidden, my heart wouldn't let me run. If Ethan was trying to reach me, if there was even the smallest chance he was still out there somewhere, I had to find him. I left the motel before sunrise. The air outside was cool and damp, the kind that sticks to your skin. Every headlight behind me made me tense. It felt like the whole world was following me. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked smaller than I remembered, quiet but not peaceful. The police tape had been removed. Someone had been there. The front door was locked, yet when I pushed, it opened with a soft creak like it had been waiting. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it, except for one thing. On the kitchen table, beside Ethan's laptop, there was a small envelope. My name was written on it in his handwriting. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a flash drive, and a note that said only, if you're reading this, they know. My stomach turned. I plugged the flash drive into the laptop. A single video file appeared, timestamped 3 nights before he disappeared. I pressed play. The camera shook slightly, as if he'd set it on the counter. Ethan looked tired, anxious. He kept glancing at the window behind him. Something's wrong, he said, voice barely above a whisper. They told me to keep quiet, but I can't. If anything happens, Alec, don't believe what they tell you. Check the files. It's all their names, payments, everything. Then the video glitched, the frame blurred, and for half a second, a shadow moved behind him, tall, indistinct. Ethan turned, startled, and the screen went black. I slammed the laptop shut. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I didn't even know who they were. But suddenly, the room felt too small, the air too heavy. That's when I heard the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps on the front door. I froze. No one should have known I was back. I crept toward the window, pulled the curtain just an inch. A man stood on the porch, the same one I'd seen by the gas station. Dark jacket, cap low over his face. He knocked again, louder. Alec rose. His voice was calm, too calm. This is Detective Harris. We need to talk. My chest tightened. The detective from before had been named Cole, not Harris. I didn't answer. He waited a moment, then said quietly, you found something, didn't you? I backed away from the door, phone in hand, ready to dial 911. Then he added one last sentence that made me stop cold. Your brother wasn't the first. The silence after that felt endless. I could hear the faint scrape of his shoes as he stepped off the porch, then nothing. When I finally dared to open the door, the porch was empty. Only a slip of paper remained under the welcome mat, an address written in pencil, the same handwriting as the note in the envelope. The address was in the next county, near an old industrial park. I didn't even think. I just grabbed my keys and drove. The closer I got, the more the landscape changed, trees giving way to rusted fences, abandoned warehouses, cracked pavement. The address led to a storage facility, the kind that looked forgotten by time. Unit 37. My headlights flickered across the faded numbers as I parked. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, but I couldn't. The lock was already broken. I lifted the door slowly, the metal groaning as it rolled upward. Inside, dust floated in the beam of my flashlight, and then I saw it. Rows of boxes labeled with names, dozens of them. Ethan's name was on one near the back. I pulled it open. Inside were folders, photos, copies of reports stamped closed, insufficient evidence. Each one showed a face, a story cut short, just like my brother's. And at the bottom of the box another phone, Ethan's second phone. The screen was cracked, but it still turned on. There was only one recording saved. I hit play. Static, then his voice again, trembling but clear. If you're hearing this, they're already watching you. Don't trust anyone in uniform. Not until you find the file marked Red Gate. The recording ended with the sound of a door slamming, footsteps running, and then silence. My hands went numb. I looked around the unit again, heart racing. Somewhere outside, gravel crunched under heavy boots. Someone was here. I grabbed the phone, the flash drive, and one folder with the words Red Gate scribbled across it. Then I ran. By the time I reached the car, the lights of another vehicle appeared at the far end of the lot. I didn't wait to see who it was. I floored it, tires screeching as I sped out into the night. In the rearview mirror, I could see the headlights following for a few seconds before they vanished into the darkness. I didn't stop driving until the city lights reappeared on the horizon. My hands still haven't stopped shaking. Ethan's warning, the messages, the files, it all means something bigger than I can understand. But now I know one thing for sure. My brother was right. They're here, and they're not finished with me yet. I drove until dawn blurred the sky into gray. The folder sat on the passenger's seat, edges bent from how tightly I'd been holding it. Red Gate. 2 words that didn't mean anything, yet they felt heavier than everything I'd ever known. When I finally stopped, I was miles outside the city, in an empty rest stop parking lot. I locked the doors, spread the papers across the dashboard, and started reading. Most of it looked like government reports, but they weren't finished. Dates were blacked out, signatures missing. Every page mentioned the same thing. Incident 47B. Red Gate program. Some files listed field subjects, others showed coordinates marked with red ink. And there, at the bottom of the second page, I saw his name. Ethan rose up, my throat closed up. Whatever this program was, Ethan hadn't just stumbled into it, he'd been inside it. One line caught my eye, witness transfer pending. AR my initials. I whispered to myself, they knew about me. I checked the flash drive again. Besides the video, there was a folder labeled keys. Inside were encrypted text files, nothing human readable. So I searched the laptop's memory. Hidden in the corner of Ethan's desktop was a small icon named Gateway Ishe. When I clicked it, the screen flashed once and a login box appeared. Access requires token. That had to be what Ethan meant by keys. I scrolled through the folder again and found a note tucked between pages. Trust no system. If you open it, be offline. I yanked the Wi-Fi cord from the wall socket before I even thought twice, then dragged one of the keys into the program. For a second, nothing happened. Then lines of data flooded the screen. Maps, lists, names. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear myself breathe. It wasn't just about Ethan, it was about all the missing people. Dozens of names matching the boxes I'd seen in the storage unit. Their cases weren't random. They were linked through something called Project Red Gate, a joint operation between private security firms and a government contractor. Each file had a purpose field beside it. Most said disposition, unresolved, or transfer, complete. But Ethan's read status, active asset recovery, pending. Active. That meant he could still be alive. Tears blurred my vision. My hands shook so badly, I could barely keep typing. A folder, titled Observations, contained scanned pages of surveillance notes, timestamps, addresses, even photographs. One of them stopped my heart cold. It was a picture of me, taken through the window of my old apartment. Date stamped 3 weeks before Ethan vanished. The note underneath read, Subject AR remains unaware. Proceed with containment protocol if contact occurs. Containment. The word made me sick. I slammed the laptop shut and sat there, staring at my reflection in the windshield. If they'd been watching me all along, then every move I'd made, every phone call, every night I thought I was alone, hadn't been private at all. I needed to tell someone, anyone, but who could I trust? Then I remembered the one person who'd always believed Ethan, Professor Lang, his mentor from the university. He'd helped Ethan with research on urban data networks, government infrastructure contracts. If anyone could decode this, it was him. I dialed his number from a payphone near the rest stop. The line rang twice. Hello. His voice sounded older, strained. Professor Lang, it's Alec Rose. Silence, then a quick inhale. Alec, where are you? Are you safe? I don't know. I found something. Ethan's files. I think he was part of something called Red Gate. Another pause, then quietly, so he told you. My blood went cold. You knew. I whispered. I tried to warn him, Lang said. They monitor communications. Don't talk on this line. Meet me where he took the photographs. You'll understand when you see it. Come alone. The phone clicked dead. I stood there for a long moment, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. Ethan had taken thousands of photos, but which one? Then it hit me. The abandoned bridge overlooking the old power facility. It was one of his favorite places, the last post he'd made before he disappeared. I got back into the car. The sky was turning orange. I didn't know what waited for me at that bridge, or if I'd even make it there. But I knew this much: the truth wasn't buried in those files. It was still alive, hiding behind a gate I was about to open. The road to the bridge was barely visible through the morning fog. Every turn felt familiar and foreign at the same time, like a dream that was trying to warn me of something I'd already forgotten. When I reached the clearing, the old bridge rose out of the mist like a ghost. Rusted metal, cracked pavement, silence, except for the wind. Ethan used to come here to think. He said it was the only place where the world stopped listening. A figure stood near the railing. Professor Lang. His coat fluttered in the breeze, his hair thinner than I remembered, but his eyes, those same tired eyes, watched every shadow behind me before he spoke. "You shouldn't have come alone," he said quietly. "You told me to," he sighed, looking at the horizon. "And you listened, just like Ethan did." My heart clenched. "What is Red Gate? What did you two uncover?" Lang hesitated, then reached into his pocket and handed me a small metal drive. It was old, dented, with a faint red mark etched on one side, a gate symbol. "Ethan found inconsistencies in the city's infrastructure contracts," Lang said. "Money being funneled into facilities that didn't exist. When he traced it, the trail led to an unregistered data center outside the industrial zone. That's where the program began." "Program?" I asked. "Red Gate," he said. "It started as a predictive policing system. AI models meant to prevent crime before it happened, but they used real people. Ethan discovered they were labeling civilians as potential risks and quietly disappearing them for observation." I couldn't breathe. "You mean, they took them?" He nodded. "Reassigned, detained, some released under new identities, others he didn't finish." My chest tightened. "And Ethan?" Lang looked at me then. Really looked. "He tried to leak it. The files you found, he was going to send them to a journalist. But before he could, Redgate flagged him as a data threat. They turned the system on him. His own research identified him as an instability risk. He became their target." For a moment, I couldn't move. The wind felt colder, the world smaller. "Why didn't you stop them?" I whispered. "I tried," Lang said, his voice cracking. "But once you're in their network, there's no outside. Everything, the police, the contractors, the media, it's all connected. I left before they could silence me too. But now that you've accessed his files, they'll come for you." Before I could respond, the sound of engines cut through the fog. Two black SUVs rolled up the dirt road, headlights slicing through the mist. Lang grabbed my wrist. "Go," he hissed. "Take the drive, it has the access key. Find the journalist Ethan trusted. Her name's Myra Devlin. She can finish what he started." "What about you?" He gave a sad, knowing smile. "They already know where I am. Run, Alec." I didn't want to leave him, but instinct took over. I sprinted toward the trees, clutching the drive like it was my heartbeat. Behind me, doors slammed, voices shouted, then a single, sharp crack echoed across the bridge. I turned once. Lang was on the ground. The world spun. My legs barely worked, but I kept running. Branches slashing at my arms, lungs burning. I didn't stop until I reached the car. I threw myself inside, hands trembling as I jammed the key into the ignition. As I drove, I couldn't stop hearing that sound. Not the gunshot, the silence that followed. The kind of silence that meant someone had just disappeared. Hours later, I pulled into a diner off the highway. My face in the bathroom mirror didn't look like mine anymore. Just a stranger with wide eyes and dirt on her skin. I splashed cold water on my face and took out the drive. The symbol on it, that red gate, pulsed faintly when the light hit it. For a second, I thought I saw it flicker, like it was breathing. I whispered, "Ethan, what did you do?" When I plugged it into the laptop, a single folder appeared. Inside, one file, Myraxis, a location tag next to it, coordinates pointing to a small town near the coast. That had to be her. I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and looked out the window. In the reflection, I saw a man at the far table, reading a newspaper, except he wasn't turning the pages. He was watching me through the glass. Our eyes met. He lowered the paper, just enough for me to see the emblem on his jacket. A red gate. My heart dropped. I grabbed my things and slipped out the back door into the rain. The night swallowed me. But even as I disappeared down the empty street, I knew one thing for certain. Ethan's story wasn't over. Neither was mine. And whoever ran Red Gate, they knew I was coming. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It came down in heavy sheets, turning the road into a river of silver reflections. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that the skin on my knuckles turned white. Every passing headlight felt like a threat. Every shadow like a pair of watching eyes. The coordinates from the drive led me east, toward the coast. According to the map, the town was called Harbor Point, population barely 3,000. A quiet place, the kind of town that rarely made the news. Maybe that's why Mira Devlin had chosen it. When I finally saw the Welcome to Harbor Point sign, it was half-rusted, bullet holes cutting through the word welcome. My phone had no signal. The last streetlight flickered as I drove past the docks. Somewhere in the distance a foghorn groaned, long and low, like the sound of something warning me to turn back, but I didn't. Myra's address was scrawled on a note inside the folder. 22, Brighton Row. I parked outside an old bookstore with a faded sign that said Devlin's Rare Finds. The windows were dark, but a single lamp glowed deep inside. I pushed the door open. The bell above it gave a weak chime. "Hello," I said softly. "Mira." For a long moment, there was only the creak of old wood. Then a woman's voice from behind a shelf said, "You shouldn't have come here." She stepped into view, older than I expected, maybe in her 50s, with sharp eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. She wore a heavy coat, her hair tied back, and her hand lingered too close to the phone on the counter. "I'm Alec Rose," I said quickly. "Ethan was my brother." Her expression changed. A flicker of recognition, then quiet disbelief. "You're alive." I could say the same, I whispered. She motioned me to follow her to the back of the shop. The shelves were stacked with books that looked untouched for years. But when she pulled one out, a red-covered atlas, the entire shelf shifted open like a door. Behind it was a small office with a single desk. Walls lined with soundproofing foam. "They've been tracking this story for years," she said as she shut the hidden door behind us. "Ethan was the last one who got close enough to see inside the program." I placed the metal drive on the desk. "He left this for me." Mira stared at it for a long moment. Then she opened a drawer and pulled out an identical drive. "He gave me one too," she said quietly. "Different data, same lock. You have the key to mine, and I have the key to yours." It took me a second to understand. "He split the files." She nodded. "Smart man. That way, no one could open the full archive unless both pieces were together." Mira connected the drives to her computer. The screen flickered, code running like a waterfall. A single word appeared, "unlocked." A map unfolded across the display, dozens of red pins scattered across the country. Each one marked a name. Some were familiar, most weren't. All of them, according to the database, had been tagged as potential instability subjects. People from different cities, ages, backgrounds, but the same pattern. Arrested once, questioned, then disappeared. "Oh my God," I whispered. "They're everywhere." Mira leaned closer. "Look here." She zoomed in on one of the pins, a location labeled Red Gate Facility 04B, active, a small coastal research site. "That's only 20 miles from here." "So close?" I asked. "Closer than you think," she said. "That's where they're holding the remaining subjects. Your brother might be one of them." My heart almost stopped. "You mean he's still—" "I can't promise," she said. "But if the data's right, there's a chance." I felt the world tilt. After everything, the running, the fear, the silence, there was still a spark of hope. But before I could say anything, Myra's computer beeped sharply. A window flashed red. "Trace detected," she muttered, eyes widening. "They found us." "What do we do?" She yanked both drives from the port and stuffed them into my hands. "Take these, go out the back door. Don't stop. If you make it to the docks, find the ferry station. There's a boat that leaves every morning at 6. It's unlisted. Ask for Captain Ray. He owes me a favor." "Mira, come with me." She shook her head. "They already know my face. You still have a chance. Tell the world what they did. Don't let Ethan's story die with him." There wasn't time to argue. I ran through the back exit, the cold rain slapping my face. My shoes splashed through puddles as headlights cut through the alley behind me. 2 black cars again. The same kind. Red Gate. I sprinted toward the pier, clutching the drives to my chest. My lungs burned. My heart pounded. But I didn't stop. Somewhere behind me, I heard the crash of a door, a shout, and then silence again. The kind of silence that meant someone else had just paid the price for knowing too much. When I reached the docks, The wind almost knocked me down. The sea was wild, waves slamming against the wooden posts. I ducked behind a row of shipping crates and caught my breath. In the distance, a man in a raincoat was tying up a small ferry, humming to himself. "Ray," I called out softly. He turned, startled, then frowned. "Who's asking?" "Mira sent me," I said, holding up the drives. "She said you'd know what to do." He stared at me for a moment, then gave a single nod. "Get on board. We leave now." I climbed aboard, soaked to the bone, my heart still racing. As the boat pulled away from the dock, I looked back toward the town. The bookstore was already a silhouette swallowed by fog. I didn't know if Mira had made it out, but I knew one thing. The files were real. The truth was out there, and I wasn't running anymore. The boat cut through the fog like a blade. The farther we got from shore, the quieter everything became. No engines behind us, no shouting, just the steady rhythm of the sea. I stood at the railing, hair whipping across my face, clutching the 2 drives inside my jacket. They felt heavier than they should, as if every missing person weighed inside them. Ray didn't ask questions. He just steered. Mira said if anyone ever came with those, he muttered over the wind, "Get them as far as you can before dawn." We sailed until the horizon bruised with light. When we finally reached the next harbor, a small fishing town with more gulls than people, he handed me a duffel bag, cash, clean phone, fuel card. "That's all I can do." "Why are you helping me?" I asked. He gave a crooked smile. "Because she once helped me disappear." He didn't wait for thanks. The boat pushed off again, leaving me standing on the pier with the world still spinning beneath my feet. I rented a tiny room above a bait shop and opened the laptop. No network, no trace, just me and the truth staring back. I copied every file, every photo, every line of data onto an encrypted drive and wrote one message to the outside world: if anything happens to me, release it all. Then I connected to the only contact Mira had left, Mia Journalist Collective, that specialized in whistleblower stories. I sent them everything. Every name, every coordinate. Hours passed. I sat by the window, watching the sun rise over the gray water, waiting for the sound of footsteps that never came. That night, the first article went live. The headline burned across every feed: Project Red Gate exposed missing citizens found in illegal surveillance program. Within hours, the story spread faster than they could contain it. Leaked documents, internal memos, whistleblower testimonies. The world finally saw what Ethan had died trying to show them. But victory didn't feel like victory. When the reporters called to ask for a comment, I couldn't speak. All I could think of was the last time I'd seen my brother's handwriting, the note that said, "If you're reading this, they know." Now everyone knew, and somewhere, I hoped, he was still alive to see it. A week later, I went back to the bridge, the place where everything began. The air was colder now, the river quiet beneath it. I left a single red flower on the railing, the kind Ethan used to sketch in his notebooks, and whispered, "You were right, Ethan. They can't hide forever. The world will argue about Red Gate for years. Who ordered it? Who profited? Who vanished? But I've learned something the files never said. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment, it's about remembering. Every time someone reads his story, every time a name once marked unresolved is spoken out loud, Ethan lives a little longer. And when people ask if I'm afraid they'll come for me again, I tell them the truth. Fear is what they built the gate from. Truth is what tore it down. So if you're listening to this, don't forget why this started. Because one person refused to look away. One brother refused to stay silent. And one voicemail finally made it through the noise. This is not just Ethan's story, it's mine. And now, it's yours too.